So today we're going to complete the last few steps of this project, and by the end of the class period you are going to have your finished result. So we're going to start by taking our black cutout leaves, and with the grid face down and the non-gridded side face up, decide how you want that to be arranged on your page. So once you have this arranged on top of your collage the way you want it to fit onto the page, remember this placement, because what we're going to do is create a second layer of painted leaves behind it to fill up some of the negative space. So take your leaves and then flip them over to the back side where the grid is face up this time. And what you're going to do is find a different arrangement for it. Maybe it's going to go off the page, maybe you only see part of the leaves, but arrange it to where in a different location you have a nice interesting view of your leaves. And once you've decided on the second placement of your leaves, very carefully take a pencil and trace all the way around them, being really careful that you don't draw extra marks that you may not need. And I've chosen to move my leaves 2 separate times to have separate branches individually. Then you're going to take your watercolor paints and very carefully choose a color that fits your analogous color scheme, but you're going to paint inside of those leaf shapes for that new set of background leaves. And when you choose your color, you want to make sure that it's a color that's going to be darker in value, so you may want to mix your paint with a little bit less water this time. That way it's darker on top of any of your background colors as you go through to paint this section. And then let this dry before you move on to the next step. So now that my watercolor has completely dried, I've let that sit for a little while, I'm going to come back into the watercolor leaves and add in some details using either my permanent Sharpie or a ballpoint pen, whatever sort of a black pen that you've used in your background. So you want to pull back up your original resource picture because that's going to have all of the details on the leaves that you need to be able to see. We're going to add some extra details to make these positive space leaves show up a little bit more. So I'm going to leave that pulled up and I'm going to turn my picture to where I can see which leaf matches up with which leaf that I've painted. And then I'm going to go in and just add some details, adding in some of the veins, adding in outlines around it to make it pop a little bit more and stand out from the background. So now that I've finished adding the outlines and the details to my watercolor layer of leaves, I've taken my black cutout leaves and flipped them back over to the opposite side where the gridded drawing is face down and the back side that doesn't have any lines on it is face up. And I've lined it up on my paper where it fits across that top edge and it fits on my paper. So what we're going to do now is the very last step, which is to glue this down to our collage. And we want to be very careful that we don't get glue on the top surface. We just want it on the back side in order to seal this down. I'm going to show you how to do this using liquid Elmer's glue, but this could also be done using the same technique using a glue stick, just depending on what you have at home. But everybody should have Elmer's glue, so this will work great for that. So I'm going to take this off of my collage and place it on a scrap sheet of paper and flip it over to where the grid is face up, because this is the side we're going to attach the glue on, and then flip it to lay it down on our collage. So now, starting with a wet paintbrush, I'm going to dry most of that moisture off with a paper towel and then grab just a little bit of glue. I don't want too much because I don't want to have so much that it ends up squishing out from the sides. And I'm going to pick one area to start with. I think I'll start with the top edge on mine. That way I can make sure that part gets lined up correctly. And I'm going to add a thin layer of glue. And I want to make sure I coat that whole section. right up to the edges. Now you have to work fairly quickly because this glue is going to dry on you, so I'm just going to do one little section to start. I think that's coated pretty good. I don't think I've missed any spots. And then I'm going to very carefully flip it over to the front of my collage. Before I press it down, try to get everything matched up where it should go. And then with clean, dry hands, give that a good press on the front surface. Now that is going to be my anchor point that helps me know exactly where to glue the rest of these down. And so once I have this part complete, I'm going to work with lifting up one little part at a time and adding some glue and gluing it down little by little. So now that this part is sealed down nicely, I'm going to lift, add a little bit of glue there, and work my way through the rest of this piece. You still have to be really delicate to make sure that you don't tear your paper or anything like that, so be very gentle. And I'm trying to make sure that I don't accidentally get glue and squish glue on the top layer. Let's say, for example, you have a leaf like this that you need to put glue on the whole thing. A trick that you can do is put a piece of scrap paper behind it and flip it over as you apply your glue. I'm not trying to squish that little stem, but that may be an easier way for you to apply your glue without getting glue on your collage. Once you have everything glued down, do one final check and just make sure that you don't have any loose or stray pieces of collage that are sticking up. You can add a little touch of glue to them and glue them down. Just to make sure everything is really secure. And just add little tiny bits of glue to anything that's not glued down really well. And I like to just do a little check, make sure everything feels secure. Now as soon as you're finished, go take your paintbrush and rinse it really good, wash it in the sink with soap and water, and lay it out flat to dry. And then this project is complete.